Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Family Friday. Today, we all have a treat because we're talking to some of our great Emory College faculty and librarian that's going to talk really a conversation about learning in a hybrid world. So we just want to remind everybody that our entire series of Family Friday webinars are all posted on our website. So if you've missed any of our Friday fun, please go back and watch them or just find the pieces that you need. At the end of this, we'll also share with you our final 3 webinars, our final 3 Family Fridays coming up, because we have some great content too. But for today, we're going to jump in with today's panelists. Tim Dowd, Professor and Chair of Sociology, Michelle Gordon, Senior Lecturer and Director of Undergraduate Studies in African American Studies, and Sarah Morris, Head of Instruction and Engagement at the Emory Libraries. I'm going to let each of them introduce themselves, and then we're going to jump in to lots of fun topics, talking about what we've all learned coming out of this insane year that we all just had, what we hope to bring to the classroom, both in person and online in the upcoming year, and then also lots of amazing resources that your students will have access to as soon as they come to campus. So I will turn it over to Tim first to introduce himself.
Hello, everybody. It's good to be with you on this Friday. My name's Tim Dowd. I'm a professor in the Department of Sociology, and I'm also the department chair. I've been at Emory since 1994, so I've seen a lot of classrooms, but we're also talking about learning in a hybrid environment, and I've seen how with each passing year since I've been here, more and more digital elements are getting into the classroom, such as online platforms, our readings being accessible via online reserves, things of that nature. But I also know that we're talking about, among other things, when entire courses go online. And as you know, during the pandemic, we had that happen on our campus. And as department chair, I was, among other things, dealing with the logistics of getting our entire curriculum and our faculty into this online system. But also last year, we not only did sociology offer most of our courses online, we also offered 5 courses in person to our first year undergraduates who are on campus. And so I was involved in teaching in person and online. And in the year to come, when things have switched, is that we have 35 courses that we're primarily responsible for, and all but 3 of those will be in person. So we've gone from being mostly online for our classes for our Emory undergrads to mostly in person, at least within sociology. So I have a number of things that I can share with you, but I also want to give my colleagues some time as well, and I know that Dr. Gordon has much to say, as well as Sarah Morris as well. So thank you.
Michelle, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I am Michelle Gordon. I am a senior lecturer and the director of undergraduate studies in the Department of African American Studies. That means that I am the faculty member who oversees the undergraduate curriculum, and I also serve as the main advisor for all of the majors for African American Studies. And so, like Dr. Dowd, I was involved in the kind of overseeing and scheduling of all of the online classes, and that kind of sudden shift to the online world. Participated in and helped to do some of the training for online teaching and education last summer. And also, like sociology, our department was actually entirely online last year. And now we have all but 2 courses that are going to be face-to-face this year. So I've learned a lot about teaching myself in terms of learning in a hybrid world and what we've gone through this past year, but also through assisting my colleagues and our students through their learning and teaching experiences as well.
Great, thanks. Sarah.
Great. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. It's nice to be here on this Friday. So I'm Sarah Morris. I'm the head of instruction and engagement at the Emory libraries. And essentially that means I help to coordinate different outreach events we do for students as well as instruction opportunities. So at the libraries, we see students in a variety of forms and venues. We work with students one-on-one to support their research assignments and their studies and their work. We, as librarians, often work with our faculty colleagues and go into classes to provide instruction and help students with research assignments. And we also offer a lot of our own programming. We do workshops on research skills, digital literacy skills, information literacy, various transferable skills. Like everyone else, we had to go fully online in the past year, and we are definitely looking at ways to continue some of that and offer sort of hybrid opportunities, online learning options, in-person learning. So we're definitely excited to see students in person and back in the libraries once more. Also, as part of my role, I work with the English department. So I see a lot of students in first year writing classes as they're getting started at Emory and developing their research and writing skills. So that's another aspect of my work at the libraries. So I'll hand it back to Sherry now for our conversation to get going.
So we're going to do today's panel a little bit differently. We actually don't have a lot of slides to share, so I'm going to stop sharing, but wanted just to give the framework. We're going to ask Tim, Michelle, and Sarah really to talk about the lessons learned from a year online, other perspectives as faculty and staff members really that they have, and a lot of what Bridget and I have done all summer is to give you as parents and families maybe some questions or thoughts about what you could be asking your students now, or how you might engage with them in the fall semester. So we are going to pick all three brains about that. And then Sarah actually to give maybe a little bit deeper dive into what those library resources are, because it is way beyond finding a journal or a book in the stacks. And so I'm always amazed about the resources that the libraries have to offer. So I'm going to stop my share. I encourage anyone listening in, if you have questions, to put them in the Q&A. Bridget and I will be monitoring that, and we'll make sure that we share that as well. So I'm going to open it up maybe with Michelle first. Maybe just some takeaways about what it was like teaching online, the good, the bad, the ugly, what you hope never to have to think about again, and maybe things that you are going to continue to carry through with you in years to come.
Well, how much time do you have? No, I'm just kidding. I will say that the good was incredibly and shockingly, surprisingly good. The bad was really bad. The ugly was definitely some ugly crying when, really it was just sometimes getting the Canvas forum to work or the videos to upload and just, some of the logistics of it. When the basics wouldn't or just seem to be working against you, you just kind of feel defeated and helpless. But, I overcame it, I feel like, within those first few weeks, and was really so impressed with my students and how they rallied, and we all helped each other, and we just agreed at the start of each semester that we would be gracious and kind and forgiving with each other and do the best we could. And that actually helped to, I think, foster a sense of community, even though we were far apart from each other. So I feel like one of the things I actually learned is how really wonderful Emory students are, really dedicated to their learning and supportive of each other and invested in education. And so I really appreciated that. As far as challenging things that I think really worked out in the end that I want to carry forward. Some of that would include, incorporating different and new technologies and elements of digital humanities into my courses and my everyday teaching. And, of course I had as Dr. Dowd mentioned, started to incorporate and engage some of that over recent years, but this of course required a next level in terms of breadth and depth of engagement in order to teach students, reach students, be flexible for students, support students, from all these sort of remote spaces and ways. And I think there are certain pieces of that I really want to carry forward. It really teaches a different sense of what digital scholarship can be, or what public scholarship and public engagement can be, that helps you move beyond just the classroom and trying to get a grade, and really seeing how you can engage in a responsible and critical and thoughtful, hands-on way the world of ideas, how you can learn from it, but also find ways to contribute to it. So that's something I really want to, I think, carry forward with me.
Thank you.
And I do just want to say, as far as the good, but also as, you know, one of my strongest recommendations for how students succeeded and excelled remotely, but also do so in person, is by relying on the incredible resources and people in Emory libraries. They were truly heroic and incredible last year, you know, in helping us move to the digital world, and really all of those resources that they produced and harnessed are still available. And, you know, to me, that's probably one of the greatest things that students can do, and that you can encourage your own students to do, or do yourselves, is engage and make use of the different kinds of resources, the human, the physical, and the digital resources that Emory Library has to offer.
Awesome. Thanks, Tim. Same question. The good, the bad, the ugly.
I'm a believer in that there's a place for online courses. So in our department, we've been teaching individual online courses since about, I think, 2013. So we have some online courses during the summer. We've done that pretty consistently. And we've had a few online courses during the regular semester prior to the COVID pandemic. And those courses are valuable because we have some students who, you know, because of their schedule, they, you know, work study or other types of, you know, supporting themselves. But online courses are good for their, gives them more options. Students who are doing internships, students who are studying abroad on Emory's programs, but can still take some Emory courses. So the occasional online courses have been really something that our students have valued. There's demand for them. What we didn't, Sherry, what we didn't see before was a large student demand to have all the courses be online, and that was the bad of the pandemic. And where most of our courses were online, and I just would point out is that with what happened last academic year, it wasn't just that the courses were online. It was particularly for students living on campus, almost all of their homework, their communication with others, you know, they get up in their dorm rooms, they'd get on their computer. When it came time to go, you know, to use wonderful resources from the library, they were on their computer. When they were socializing at Emory events, they were on their computer. And so the bad is when everything goes online, students and faculty are less than thrilled with it, because one of the great things about Emory is the dynamism that comes from the classroom, the exchange between just incredibly sharp students, keeping faculty on their toes, and the dialogue that goes on. And as Dr. Gordon pointed out, that sense of community, that dialogue continued, but it's harder to do when, you know, people are scattered online, or for those of us who are teaching in person, when they're, you know, 60 feet away from you with a mask. And so the students did wonderfully at keeping that community alive. But from working with the students in person and online, I also know that they're very eager to have a return to normal situations where you have some online courses that are here and there. But yes, as Dr. Gordon was saying, the library has been a great resource for helping faculty make this transition. So I think that we did online courses as well as could be done. But I understand that that if students have their choices, by and large, they say let's meet in class. And I'll end by saying, one of the things that really stuck with me is that I'm looking forward to seeing our students three-dimensionally without the mask. So I still encounter students that I taught in person that when I see them without their mask now, I don't recognize them. And I think Dr. Gordon could agree with me. For those that we taught online, their faces were about that big. And so we're not. So when you see them in all of their entirety, it can be a little bit jarring. So this coming year, I'm looking forward just to reacquainting with students that I know, but I don't recognize.
Awesome. Thank you. Sarah, I'm going to let you answer, but maybe in a different way, of how the libraries not only help support faculty, and for parents, all of our faculty actually went through a very specialized training called ECOTS, which was Emory College Online Teaching, which we know was pretty unique to Emory, that they all got that training, and some of our colleagues helped do that. But Sarah, in the libraries, how have you been supporting academic departments and students, and what do you see from there moving forward as we do return to campus kind of in person?
Good question. And thank you to Drs. Gordon and Dowd for your kind words about the library. We had fantastic, the whole Emory community, I feel, really just came together around this. I think one thing that really came up for us a lot was, I think we all sort of having access to, the internet, our phones, information at our fingertips, you sort of take for granted that everything's there. And throughout the year, we often found out, for instance, my colleagues in the archives, there are certain things that just were not readily available during this year when we all had to be online. And so there were some interesting challenges that came up, but also I think some great opportunities to kind of discuss sort of how information is produced and what's made available and why can't I access a certain thing. And so it became a really interesting, I think, space for some dialogue, not only with our faculty colleagues to figure out how to, run certain classes or research assignments, but students themselves. And they were all really flexible. I have so many students who had to just change research topics and assignments. Something just wasn't working, but they showed a lot of resilience, flexibility. And I think it actually became a space to develop some new skills and just learn some new things about this information world we all live in and create and inhabit and contribute to. So that was definitely one major area of challenge. I think another thing is we just, the library is very much a social space on campus. It's we want students to feel comfortable there and take ownership. And that was definitely challenging, not having that as available and having to engage with students in sort of solely online spaces, as Dr. Dowd referred to. But one thing that came out of this that I think is really great that we're hoping to do going forward is doing more Zoom consultations. We often found, since you can, for instance, screen share on here, we could have people pulling up screens, you're running searches, you're finding things together, and that kind of shifted that interaction in some really interesting ways. And I think actually is something we hope to do going forward and to help with people's schedules as well. For instance, if they can't come to campus, maybe they're working and they're off somewhere, we can still connect with them and help them with their assignments and work. So those were some I think things that definitely came up during the year. In terms of ECOTS, and thank you for mentioning that, Sherry, yeah, and classes, a lot of the librarians also went through a bunch of training. And I think one thing we're hoping to sort of, carry forward and that really struck me in that process was just, I think, being more mindful about having different interaction methods and just thinking about your community building in your class. Because when you're in person, you have those conversations coming in, but online, it can often take a little more extra steps to sort of build up that sense of community and that rapport. So I think those are some lessons we're hoping to take into online workshops we do in the future and just other types of hybrid environments. So yeah, those were some things that come to mind there for the past year.
So we have two questions in the chat that I'd hope actually to address kind of as a group as well. One was just, I answered this in the chat too, but how many of our courses will actually be face-to-face versus in person? It's looking like over 90% of our courses are going to be face-to-face. When we made that decision, and it's ever evolving, we didn't know how many of our students would not be able to make it to campus. So we have retained some online courses. Dr. Dowd said what sociology has 5 still online,
No.
3. Dr. Gordon, you have 2 still online. So, actually, Tim, one of the things that you said is sometimes online learning is a really nice complement to other things students are doing. And so maybe being able to pick up an online class helps with the commute so that you can go to that internship in the middle of the day. And so For now, we are hoping that most of our classes will be face-to-face. We will still have some students who cannot make it back to campus, so we wanted to make sure that there was enough online offerings so that they could stay enrolled. But for our students, even in Atlanta, many will have an opportunity probably to take one or two classes online if it fits in their schedules as well. The other question, and Sarah, I think maybe you'd be a great one to answer, but Tim and Michelle, if you've seen this with students, because you've now had whole classes online, is we will have our students back in residence halls. They will have roommates. And if they're going to be in an online class, I actually know that all first-year students will take their Health 100 class online. Maybe some tips for how to best set yourself up. Is it in your res hall? Should they find another space on campus? And maybe some of the good recommendations for headphones and other things as well.
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think that's something we've been considering a lot at the libraries as well. I would suggest, checking out options both in your res hall and the campus libraries. And I will say we have 9 libraries. So we have the main Woodruff Library, but we also have a Student Digital Life, which is located in the Cox dining hall. They have a sort of computer lab space upstairs. We have different spaces, and our website details bookable spaces, and it's often categorized by group study, etc. One thing we're hoping to do in the fall, though, is launch more course viewing rooms and spaces for students so they can come and have a space to be perhaps outside of their dorm room. So I would definitely recommend they check the library website, and if they have a space need and a question, you can always feel free to contact somebody at the library. We have a variety of ways you can get in touch, and online help form, just come in and ask. And we're definitely happy to talk with them about what their needs might be and kind of recommend options. And we do have headphones and things that students are free to check out, various equipment. So if that's something that is a need, if you forget yours one day and you're like, oh no, I need to get into my Zoom and I don't want to be blasting this all over the library, we can definitely get you set up with something. So those are a few suggestions I'd have for grappling with that, because that's certainly something people are considering. Yeah.
We're going to talk about Res Life in 2 weeks, but one of the things you can encourage, Bridget, I don't know if this is where you're going, is having those conversations, roommate to roommate, at the very beginning of the semester, and really talking about the schedules. And if they do both happen to have an online class at the same time, how to work that out. A lot of our residence halls have great study lounge spaces, and others too. We have a beautiful campus. Our hope is that after a year where everybody was stuck at home, we have students who are really curious to get out and about on campus and find those nooks inside, outside, all across campus too. Sorry, Bridget, did you want to?
Same type of thing, Sherry. Yeah, I think the other part is that with earbuds, if they know what type of class it is, they can be, on their own with their earbuds. And I've seen students sitting outside. I've seen students, completely focused, but they have their earbuds in, so they don't have any interruptions. So I think the mix too, with having maybe one class remote, is so much better than 4 classes remote. So we do have some students who actually do say, I don't mind one class remote. It's just that, last semester, too many classes remote was just too much on the brain.
And I'll say from an academic support services side, in my office, we do tutoring, we do lots of other workshops in addition to what Sarah's saying. Our Emory students are often so busy that really walking across campus, and our campus isn't that big, can be a challenge if you're trying to squeeze a workshop in between work and a class. And so having some of these kind of online formats for a quick advising session or a workshop, or the ability to play something back on your own, I think has been a benefit. That is, if students actually engage in it. I know a lot of us have fallen into the, cool, it's recorded, I'll watch it later. And how many of us really go watch it later? So if given the opportunity to go to something live and participate in person, I think that's really, really great, but also wonderful to have things on demand as needed. So shifting now kind of to the questions about teaching in person and going back to in person. Dr. Dowd, maybe what are some of the things that you're really excited to do back in person in a classroom this year that you weren't allowed to do or couldn't do online? You mentioned seeing faces, and actually the masks, we do still have a mask mandate for inside. Yes. That was a question as well. Our university is following guidelines both by the CDC and what the College Health Board is recommending. If you have any questions about our guidelines, the Emory Forward site is up to date in real time. And if those policies change, you can be aware of them as well. So sorry,
Yes.
Tim.
Yes, so I taught both online and in person this past academic year. The in-person was, we followed all the protocol. The students were amazing and their attention to the protocol, but everyone was socially distanced. I was in a fishbowl, if you will, plexiglass surrounding the lectern, then with the mask. And I think I had, you know, what we would do is if it was like a 40-person class, you'd put it in a place with for like 200 seats. So everyone's all spread around. So my strong sense from the students was that they preferred to be in person. But we all also prefer to be in person where we can actually are closer together. So one of the things that I'm looking forward to is that it's a lot easier when you're in person to not only build a relationship with the class, a sense of community, but that comfort where you can pursue those tangents, and Dr. Gordon can address this, those tangents that sometimes arise and that are really beneficial. I found that those tangents, you know, exploring unanticipated things in a productive way, that happened online, but I feel that it happens more within the classroom. That being said, is that some of the things I think that will persist is that when we were in a completely online environment, it's pretty easy to get a person who's a scholar in a particular area to show up, and they're in another country, to show up in your class if they Zoom rather than if they have to travel. And I think that one of the things, and I'll be interested to see what Michelle has to say about this, I think I'll be continuing more of those elements in my in-person courses moving forward. The ability just to connect when you need to with other individuals, with other resources. You know, we've already been doing that to a certain degree. Faculty use YouTube videos to illustrate a point, but there's also a wider range of things that are going on now, especially with digital resources that are available from the library. It's easy to bring those into the classroom. So just the conversation, the connections, those are the things that that can happen online, but they're more organic. That's a good way of putting it. They're more organic in person, and it just happens. Where online you work so that everyone works together to help make that happen.
I don't know about either of you two, and Sarah too. I actually miss kind of the side conversations in class, as distracting as they ever were. You know, talking to a screen, especially when cameras are off, is really hard. And so you just don't always get a sense of, are they asking a question or what are they chatting about? So I know for myself, I'm really looking forward to breakout groups and being able to wander and walk through the class and just listen to what's happening. Michelle, did you want to add to that?
I think I feel similarly. You know, I'm looking forward to that in-person interaction, and, you know, seeing students as three-dimensional beings rather than, you know, rectangular torsos. But I also think that I missed seeing students interact with each other. So, you know, I appreciated the ways we were able to kind of shift digitally to one-on-one interactions with students during office hours and Zoom meetings and so forth. But I missed seeing, the kind of side conversations among students before class or during, you know, small group work, and, you know, seeing friendships bud, and, you know, like thesis ideas being born. You know, I am looking forward to that, I think. And just, I miss campus, you know, when I go back, and it feels so strange because it's kind of empty-ish. But it's such a beautiful campus, and really feels like a real community. And I'm looking forward to that kind of return as well.
Yeah, it really, oh, I'm sorry.
No, please go.
I was just going to say, what really stuck out to me was as Dr. Gordon was saying, was the prior to and the end of class. In person, there were all these conversations that were going on, you know, among the students, and then you know, the students and I, socially distanced, of course. And then after class is over, some of us would be walking in the same direction. It just felt really, I missed that, you know, the online course, people, you know, that some of them don't want to show up early in case they're the only one, and they don't want to be in a situation where they have to carry the conversation away. So you get, boom, all these students show up right when class starts. Class is over, you know, the online classes, people log off. I'm looking forward to that the conversations before and after class that really make in-person teaching wonderful.
I want to ask a question about kind of class organization for you as a faculty member, if that's changed. And Sarah, I also want to bring you in to really talk about Canvas, which is our learning management system that now most faculty use. But Dr. Dowd and Dr. Gordon, having to really think through like what was going to be presented online, has that changed how you organize, and maybe not, but how you organize a semester of a class and how you make materials accessible to students that you may or may not teach face-to-face?
Yes, I mean, definitely it has. You know, when we went to the online courses, we had basically half the class time, the synchronous meeting time. So that really forced an interesting kind of evaluation of, so what is the core of what I feel is most important to teach in this class in terms of the material, the skills, the knowledge, the theories, you know, and to really make sure I was building around those most core elements. And it turned out to be kind of a fun intellectual activity for me that did reaffirm and in some ways shifted a little bit like what the gist of that particular course, you know, typically maybe took shape as. And so I've been giving a lot of thought to, I really liked the ways it turned out. I managed to, I think part of the key was to not overstuff the syllabi. With assignments and with materials, so that allowed us to get real coverage, but also have meaningful depth and engagement with, you know, the material as we're going forward. And so I'm really trying to keep applying that in terms of the focus on those core theories and how I organized around core elements or figures or texts of my courses, but also make sure that I'm maintaining that ability to do deep engagement and really take our time with material. I think students often learn more in the end, even if we didn't cover quite as many years or figures. And I think also in using some of the kinds of Canvas and online engagement forums, I want to carry that forward. That was a lot more interesting and productive and lively for students than I thought. And it really gave a space for students who maybe aren't as comfortable speaking up in class. So that really brought out new voices and also practicing and writing and so forth. So really it was, sorry, I'll stop there.
No, that's great. And before, Tim, I let you kind of jump in, for those still with us, Canvas is our learning management system. And so basically it's a login system where every course has its own site. And professors can put as little or as much in those courses as possible. It's a great place just to put reading materials. I think, Michelle, one of the things you're probably talking about are like discussion posts and ways that students can either just share anonymously or with the class at whole. So it's just not them turning in a paper to you, but you can actually read what your classmates are thinking too. I think we've all seen some really cool things come out of those maybe informal types of assessment and interactions that we wouldn't have maybe seen in an in-person class too. Tim, how about you? Has anything kind of changed in your prep or what you're putting in your courses?
Yeah, I agree with what Dr. Gordon was saying. I would also add is the one thing that I really had to think a lot about with the online course and some ideas that came out of it that I'll carry forward. It's just this idea of, for lack of a better term, office hours. You know, so students are in our classes, and then faculty. We also have these open periods where students can drop by like I do mine open door when it's a normal environment. They can stop by my literal office. I'm there, you know, if no one's sitting there, they're free to come in. We have a conversation. Sometimes multiple students will come in. And those office hours are really important, not only because I think it helps students get more out of the classroom, but also, you know, research shows that one of the things that benefits students about, you know, higher education is the relationships that they develop with faculty in terms of mentoring and other things. And I would add to that letter writing is that when office hours are often, that's where we learn more, we get to know our students, we learn what goals they have. And so when it comes time for someone who says, I want to go to med school, can you write me a recommendation letter? The letter carries more weight if I say, here are some specific things about this person that make them, you know, a great candidate for your program. That's different than, yes, they were in my class, they got the top, you know, they were in the top 5% score. That personal connection really benefits them in terms of the recommendation letters. And it was hard. I think Dr. Gordon can, you know, would back me up on this. When you're in an online teaching situation like we were in this past academic year, you have to work a little bit harder on making those connections. And so when I saw my students, the only time I saw my students without their mask was my Zoom office hour meetings. And one of the things that I will probably carry, you know, in the semesters to come is a mixture of in-person office hours, but also some online office hours, because our students are busy, you know, and sometimes the only opening in their day is also when they're off campus. So Sherry, I will continue to make use of Zoom, with the understanding that I would prefer to be in person, but it's nice to have that tool, you know, available for us as well.
Yeah. And I hope the takeaway message for parents and families is to really encourage your students to get to know our Emory faculty, because
Yes.
they really want to get to know your students. Office hours really is one of the best ways to do this. And Sarah and I both teach sections of ECS 101, which is the first year course all first year students take. We talk a lot about academic resources and how to connect, but really emphasize that students would have to take that first step to get to know their faculty. And all of our faculty members have office hours. If it's not a set time, it can be by appointment. And we know that first year students are sometimes scared to do this. And they get to their sophomore, junior, senior year and go, man, I really wish I did more of that in my first year. I'm hoping that coming off of a mostly online year, people don't hide or shy away from that, because I think kind of the re-entry and saying, it's fine, I was hiding behind my off camera. We're going to have to do some better education around that and really push our students. So parents and families, maybe one of the questions you can ask your students in the first few weeks is, how many office hours have you gone to and what did you talk about? And just a hint, they do not have to have a question to go to office hours. They can just go and say hi. I think we're all excited just to say hi to people.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah, and I'll say, actually, I have first year students, especially who will come in and say, I don't really have anything to say exactly. I just wanted to come say hi and introduce myself. And, you know, sometimes next thing you know, this is a student who comes to visit now and again for 4 years, or somehow out of those conversations, I mention a scholarship that they then apply for and get. Or, you know, the idea for their final paper topic for the semester emerges out of a conversation. And I did see a parent comment earlier, and I think this is something that we all really felt for with students, that feeling of a lack of engagement last year, even if they're technically excelling in the classes, that can just feel really hard. And I think that office hours and really communicating in class time and one-on-one with faculty about how you're engaging with or struggling with course material and ideas is one of the most important ways of learning, but also making sure that you're engaged and learning what you're most interested in or most needing help with. And I think when we can follow our interests, we are just much more engaged. And to those ends, I would also suggest trying to use the GERs, the general education requirements, as opportunities. Yes, they are requirements, but think of them as opportunities to really explore some of your interests, so that you can engage in different kinds of learning and ideas that don't necessarily all go towards your major and minor, are still advancing you towards graduation requirements, but really allowing for that kind of engagement. But being involved and being present, and opening those conversations with faculty and with classmates really is essential, I think, to classroom success, but also to feeling more engaged and more successfully engaged.
Well, you've all given so much great information. Before, I don't see any more questions in the chat live, but I'd love to go around one more time. And if you could give one or two pieces of advice to our first year students coming in. And again, we're talking to parents and families today. So if they need to play telephone and share this with their students, what are one or two things you really hope students know from a faculty and support standpoint? And Sarah, I'll start with you.
I guess number one is just encourage your students to come to the library, check out our website, just take advantage of those resources. We hear so often students are working on a thesis their senior year and say, I wish I'd known X, or I wish I'd come to this workshop, or I wish I'd stopped by the library. So that is definitely something we emphasize. And we recognize too that a library like the Emory system, a college library, can be very different from what students might have had experiences with in the past. And so definitely just encourage them to stop by. Same with faculty. Librarians are very friendly. We're very happy to chat with people. You don't even have to have a specific question. Just come introduce yourself. We're happy to talk about research interests, classes you might be interested in, share opportunities. So that's definitely something I would recommend. Aside from that, I think kind of back to the Canvas thing earlier, we always recommend, please check your class Canvas sites, really encourage them to check out all these great online resources. There's so much out there, the OUE website, the library website, tutoring services, etc. Aside from going to those places, make sure, get those bookmarks situated, make sure you're keeping up with all of that information, because there's often really, really valuable content and things there. And faculty put so much work into designing amazing Canvas sites with additional resources. And so we really recommend students, check those out and stay engaged there. So those would be my two pieces of advice.
Thanks. Dr. Dow?
I would really emphasize that it's okay to ask for help. It's something that, in fact, I can't emphasize it enough. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to ask for help academically. Professors, is that one of the reasons that we're professors is that we really value scholarship and we really value teaching. This is, for me, this is my calling. And if a person is struggling, part of my calling is to work with them academically. It's also okay to ask for help for social or mental health reasons. We have resources on campus to help with that. It's also okay to ask for help for financial reasons. And one of the things I am pleased to see with Emory is that we went fully online, is that not everyone had equal access to computers and things of that nature. And I thought that Emory College and other folks, the library helped in this regard, stepped up and for people who didn't have the laptops or the internet connections that they needed to be online. We were working and mobilizing to help folks. But just in the big piece is let your students know that it's okay to ask for help, and that's and there are a lot of people that are prepared to help to answer those calls when they arise.
Super. Dr. Gordon?
Well, one thing I would say is really use those syllabi. Those are, the guides to your classes, and they lay out expectations and goals. They lay out the assignments and the schedules. They also provide insight into pathways or avenues to success in those classes. My syllabi also I fill with resources for help in all of the areas Dr. Dowd was just talking about. So really use them and revisit them. You know, it's a lot of information to take in at the start of the semester to review your syllabi for all your classes. Revisit them. Don't just revisit the schedules, but, you know, really use them to your advantage to help you get the most out of those classes and plan your schedule and your time management, you know, to your best ability. And I think, yes, use the libraries. You know, I really maybe sound like a broken record, but Emory libraries are extraordinary. It is, you know, to me, one of the best things about being at Emory is the library system here and the people who work in the library. And you know, they can help you in so many different ways. And, you know, from workshops and training to finding sources for you, you know, one-on-one consultations, finding study spaces, you know, I mean, all of these kinds of things, but the library is just so helpful. And I remember where I studied for my PhD, our library used to have these signs up that said, if you absolutely must know, ask a librarian. And so, you know, just ask, but the library is there. And, you know, one of the things that's most valuable, whatever you're studying, getting a degree from a place like Emory, is learning how to access and use information responsibly. And I think that we're seeing how important that is in so many different ways, but use the library to learn how to do that, how to navigate and succeed in your classes, and also to how to navigate, you know, the world responsibly as well.
Super. Thank you all so much. There was a quick question about the chat because a few of you did mention GERs, which help explore broadly. General education requirements can be taken at any time. They're not limited to the first year. In fact, our first year students cannot finish them all in 1 year. And so they really are designed for students to take them. The cool thing I think about our GERs is that they're offered, there are hundreds of choices in each section. So I don't think any two Emory students ever fulfill their GERs in the same patterns or ways. And last week, if you joined us for advising and registration, we were really encouraging students to fill up and search by GERs instead of departments, because you actually get to see lots of different classes that could do that, put those all in the shopping cart, but lots of opportunities to do that. So I'm going to share my screen real quickly just to make sure that everybody has access to our website. But if there are any additional questions, ec.orientation@emory.edu. We have 3 more webinars coming up before you can talk with me or Bridget in open hours. But next week is community and connections. So we have lots of our campus life partners who will talk about how students can get connected with organizations and different offices and resources. On July 30th, we know housing assignments actually posted yesterday. So you might have lots of questions about housing, dining, and residence life programming. So we'll have our campus experts on that. And then on August 6th, Bridget, this is a new one. We took away one of our office hours, but Bridget has compiled some of her greatest campus colleagues to really talk about how to talk to a college student and having those really candid conversations. So excited to round out our Family Friday webinar series with that. A big special thanks again to Dr. Dowd, Dr. Gordon, and Sarah for joining us today. I feel really excited about learning in a hybrid world and also in person again this fall. So we look forward to seeing everyone in just a few weeks on campus, and we hope that you have a great weekend. Thanks.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.